But so this next article we have is just some patent news. I found it interesting. So this is a Sony patent suggests AI could one day take over if a multiplayer opponent rage quits. So IGN's Jordan Allman has a story. A patent filed by Sony suggests that artificial intelligence could one day take over if your opponent quits a multiplayer game. The patent was first posted to Reddit by user Wolfgang Kype Z yesterday. The abstract summarizes what this
You can
technology
trust that name. Good
would.
old Wolf game, Capesy.
He's right there with CNN and Fox News. Yeah, you can't go wrong.
Right.
So the abstract summarizes what this technology would achieve in a convincing manner. When the first player quits or stops responding before the multiplayer game has completed, the first player replaced by a computer simulated version of the first player that selects its actions based on probabilities calculated from the tracked actions of the first player. The multiplayer game is thus able to continue without interruption or disruption, and the first player's playstyle is preserved. This means that if we take a fighting game, for example, this technology would allow a match to continue even if the opponent left via rage quit or unfortunate disconnect by tracking their previous inputs and replicating how they would play in the following minutes. This would be very handy across many games to stop players who feed, go AFK, or rage quit from ruining the match for anybody else. As always with patents, you should take this with a pinch of salt, but it's worth considering that it may appear in the practice as a practice in the future. Gavin, what does AFK mean? What does that stand for?
Oh, buddy. Well, now that you have a PC, you need to understand that AFK means away from keyboard.
Oh,
Uh,
didn't know that. It sounded more
um,
extreme, like they just went rogue or something, like they're communists now. Like sound like way more extreme than I'm just away from my keyboard.
no, it's like, yeah, I gotta pee. AFK.
Okay.
Don't let anyone kill me for a minute. I'm AFK. That's I think this is totally fucking doable, dude.
Right?
Like, especially with like genetic algorithms have come so far. It's one thing for a computer to try and learn and figure the shit out on itself, but if it can watch you and figure out how you react in certain scenarios, it should be very doable. I know Microsoft was messing around with this back with what was it, Forza. They had Drivatars,
You're
right, where
right.
you got
Yeah.
your ghost racing against people.
Hmm.
It's very well in the realm of possibility. The one thing it sort of can't do, is that so you look at, it's learning on you, and especially like a fighting game. I think a fighting game is very doable, kind of learning your habits. Do you react to this stuff? How late do you react to this stuff? How often are you doing reads versus hard reads or whatever the other predictions? So it'd be easy to learn that, but the thing is, so let's say, on a higher level, right, and maybe you won't be able to do this, and maybe that's fine, but on a higher level, when you're playing a fighting game, right, you can train your opponent, right, you keep doing the same move, and then when you do that move, you immediately do another move, and eventually your opponent's going to go aha, right, and they're gonna try and counter that, and the second they counter that, you do something else, or you sort of download
Mm.
their play style into your mind. I don't think they're going to be able to combine those two methods, which kind of sucks because in fighting games, they do have more genetic algorithms in fighting games for years and years and years. So the opponent can learn when you do that combo, and they'll start to counter that. So it's sort of, can you do both? Can you do both copying your playstyle and learning on top of that? Is that necessarily fair? Maybe not. But for a lot of other games, it'd probably be pretty fair, and I certainly think it's neat. It's just tough though, right? Like I think there was talk of League of Legends doing that for a while, which would have been terrible because it sucks that yeah, you have a guy that's sitting back at base, but at least he's not running out into the field and fucking dying. The AI, even on its hardest setting in League of Legends, is fucking garbage.
Mm.
So sending somebody else to just feed the other team, it's really going to depend from game to game, for sure. But I think it's neat. I think in Fortnite it'd be fine. There are plenty of games, racing games would be fine. Um, it sucked because you never know. Like, did they really win or was that the computer that won?
That's true.
I don't really know. But
Yeah,
it's certainly something.
yeah, that really benefits just by keeping that whole kind of thing going where it's like you don't have that loss of, oh, your player's gone, your friend's gone. Maybe it's more noticeable when you're playing with your buddy, but like if it's just like a massive, say like a Call of Duty Warzone, or you mentioned Fortnite, where it can just kind of keep the flow going and not necessarily bots, but it's just copying the gameplay of that person who's already playing enough to finish the round. It's not going to replace players, across the board, but maybe it helps to bridge that gap when someone does quit and you're like mid game. It just at least finishes it for you, and then yeah. But I guess that does get weird. What if you end up winning the match with this AI buddy, or the AI buddy wins the match? Does it just say like, "Hey, you suck. The computer beat you"? Like I don't know what it does with
Right,
that,
right.
but
Yeah, it's interesting. It'd be interesting too, like to see. I think it could work very well a lot of times for co-op games. But that being said, like that gives me flashbacks to playing, um, Diablo back in the days with our friends Billy and Andy. And Andy consistently, every time I'd kill a bunch of enemies, and he just run through and take all the gold and fuck off. So is the AI
what?
gonna grab all the gold and fuck off? Like
It would have to be traditional with what that player was doing. So it'd have to also be an asshole, just like the player was.
at that, but yeah, so you could have that, but it'd be cool, it'd be neat if, let's say, we played through Gears 5 co-op, right? We played through Gears 5, had fun, and maybe one day I want to play it, but you can't really do it, but it still kind of copies your behavior. That'd be pretty cool. If this thing's still just a head-shotting machine,
Right.
um, it's got your AI.
Also,
Yeah,
it
I'm
it it may
down.
not even have to like replace the player. What if your data your internet connection goes down quite a bit, and it just like keeps the flow going by switching to AI mode, and then when you actually snap back in, it just gives you full control. Like I wonder if it just helps with keeping the connection standard too, without just like fully replacing the player to begin with.
I think that's totally doable. I think that's very, very doable. You'd probably have like a small hitch, right? When it
Sure.
first happens, like, oh shit, we got to load up all this code to go based on this because you can't keep having that in the CPU all the time or in your RAM. But
Mm,
um, I think it also, for now, for this console generation, I think it's going to be limited to replacing AI for one player alone. I don't
gotcha.
think you could do this for two, three, anything past one. But that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
But it's gonna depend on game to game. And I think somebody's gonna put in a game that they shouldn't have. It's gonna get pushed back. Um, and then we're gonna find a happy balance. Yeah, I think that's super neat. Give me
Yeah.
my drive guitar. Uh,
Yeah. As you mentioned, it's been done in a rudimentary way. So why not?
yeah,
Sky's the limit.
yeah.
With the power of the PS5 and Xbox Series X, now we can do this.
I think it'd be cool. I mean, it'd be kind of neat too, just for training to beat your buddy. You're playing up against them in your Mario Karts or what have you. Not that Sony has a Mario Kart, but it'd be a fun way of practicing to whoop that ass.
Right.
And it'd be even neat for, can professional fighting games players do this where they play against sort of, that person? That being said, again, these people adapt. That's a huge thing in fighting games. You
Yeah.
adapt. You're not playing your character. You're not fighting a character. You're fighting a person with a personality and all that shit.
Right.
So it'd be neat. Be
Yeah.
hella neat.